Hello and welcome to Moreland Mod. Today I wanted to introduce some people to the FYSETC TMC2209 series version 2 and version 2.1 modules, StepStick modules. They are very similar, but if I were to purchase again, I would not purchase any of the 2.1s because they are, in my opinion, substantially more difficult to solder. What you're seeing there, that gigantic awful looking solder blob, is the jumper pad that was there being joined to a tiny resistor, which I have been told is 0 ohms. Do not know if that is correct. But regardless, all that was needed to do was to bridge the solder patch there to the resistor, and UART was enabled. Also, these pins, as you see right here, are for the stall guard. That did not come with those originally. They had to be added. Only the 2 pins of the triangle, of course, not the innermost one. Don't know what that does, to be honest, but I surely wouldn't try hooking it up to anything without finding that out. Anyways, then we have our other modules here, our FYSETC 2.1s. Now these have given me quite the headache. Basically, there's 2 of those tiny 0 ohm resistors next to each other, and instead of soldering a patch onto the resistor, you are soldering the 2 resistors together. The problem with that being, you can't start your stroke at the solder patch, so you have to pick one of the resistors or go dead in between. Either one risks desoldering the resistor itself from the board, which is what happened on this particular 2.1 StepStick, and that is why it is not currently in use, and also why I never bothered to correct the diagnostic pins that are kind of at a wrong, misangled there. Other than that, they are stall guard 4 capable. They do everything that a 2209 is supposed to do at this point. I have them running on an SKR. They do require that the UART jumpers have been placed, and they did not require that any jumpers were applied to MS0, MS1, MS2, or MS3. All that was needed to be done was to solder the bridge right there, put the jumper over the UART connection, also to put the connector over there for, I'm not sure if it's meant for SPI or stall guard specifically. Let me show you what I'm talking about just a moment. I apologize for that intermission there. I needed to remove the board from the printer itself in order to show you. So here, of course, the UART jumpers, 1, 2, and 3 for X, Y, and Z, are all enabled. And under here on the MS1234s, or MS0123s, depending on how you define it, none of those need anything on them. They work just fine without any additions there. But these right over on the edge, excuse me for the lighting, these pins right here, for each axis that you want to use sensorless homing, you will need to add jumpers to these locations. If you're using another board, God will help you. If it's a more advanced board, no it's not. And if it's an MKS Gen L, go ahead and purchase yourself an SKR 1.3 and get the headache over with, because the MKS Gen L was just a bird's nest of wires constantly, and I don't regret the switch personally. It was worth 20 dinero. Now, right here, one more shot on this, we see our stall guard 4 pins. There's those 2 pins added to the diagnostic, shown from above. So, focusy fuck. are your diagnostic pins right there that you will need to have soldered on. You will have to find pins yourself. I harvested mine from some old DRV 8825s, as well as some A4988s, until I got nice straight pins, and went ahead and installed those. Just a little solder on there. Make sure not to do too much. You don't want to bridge anything extra. And one problem is that after doing that, if you leave a little hill of solder, it makes it a lot harder to fit the heat sinks on there without offsetting each one of them. And you need to make sure that your solder bulbs are relatively small, because if you have to try and offset the heat sinks too much, you'll end up downgrading to your previous TMC2208 or 2130 style heat sinks just to fit them on there. And these do need the extra cooling. Despite the cool step, they just are way too more capable with current, and I expect because they warmed up rather rapidly without heat sinks, that they will fry in no time if you don't keep them cooled with a fan and as much of a heat sink as you can fit onto them. One last look here at a successfully working UART TMC2209, one more. You can see that awful solder job. I had at first just added a thin line of solder between the connectors. Was never able to register the driver, but with that big fat blob on there, it went ahead, and I guess it wasn't a dry solder anymore. I apologize so much for the terrible quality of the camera that I'm using, but I guess that allowed it to make connection. So yes, you do still need to solder the PDN chips or the TXRX chips on the TMC2209 version 2 and version 2.1 from FYSETC, and you do need to install the diagnostic pins for SolGuard. And once you do, they should function just as any other guides, such as teaching techs, would offer you the information to get them set up. I personally had to do a little experimenting around, inverting axes here and there, but after not that much of a headache, I do have a printer capable of homing itself, and it doesn't seem to have any issues as far as crashing hard into the end of the axis or anything. I am considering using the X-centerless probing deal to try and probe the bed for that. I'm not sure if I'm that utterly confident in them yet, but if I do, I'll let you know how that goes. And if anyone has any questions, or if my videomanship was so absolutely terrible that you didn't learn a single thing, please just leave a note in the comments, and I will try and get back to you with any information that I can. Again, these were for the TMC2209, not the 2208. Just to demonstrate for you how the drivers seem when they work, this is the Ender 3 homing with none of the heat bed or the actual extruder carriage on it. I just have it down to the skeleton right now. I'm doing some modifications to it, which will be posted later on the channel, the new Moreland Mod channel, which I encourage you to subscribe to. We have more things coming out as soon as possible as time permits. Here we have the Z-rays, and of course it's doing one axis at a time. I have not been able to get it to cooperate with the codependent homing yet, but I think that is more of a Moreland software issue than a me issue. So I think in future updates that it will be able to do that. Perhaps it can now, and I haven't done it right. I can't speak for absolute knowledge. As if anything, all I can say is that that is how you make the new TMC2209s work without end stops. And personally think that it's absolutely beautiful. Also, you go into the configuration advanced settings TMC drivers, TMC drivers section, you will be able to adjust your sensorless homing current, so you won't have to do it through firmware uploads, which would be exhausting. Anyways, thank you for your time. Again, this is Moreland, and welcome to Moreland Mod.